Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? I hope you're all enjoying the show so far. And Carl, very nice to finally catch up with you after all these years.
It's been a while, huh?
It's been a while. And I know there were times when you were in Shenzhen and I was in Hong Kong, but because of COVID, I couldn't come over and neither could you. But this is a very timely event for you as well because a few days ago, you guys started teasing the Nothing Phone 2. It's looking nice so far, and we'll get to that in a moment. And also, belated congratulations to you for your Red Dot Design Awards recently for all your products so far.
Thank you.
Yeah. So why don't we start off with talking about how you've navigated through COVID. So if I remember correctly, as of this coming October, it'll be your Nothing's third anniversary. So tell us your Nothing story so far.
It's been 3 years soon, but it feels like so much longer because when you're in the weed of things, things happen. And for instance, our entire company started during COVID, and this COVID was also we also had a supply chain disruption when it came to semiconductors, and to add to that, we're also like a startup company, so a lot of our supply chain partners were very hesitant to work with us. So one example would be, our first product in 2021 was a pair of headphones. When we were approaching the different factories that made headphones, they were like, well, there's so many headphones on the market. Why would we work with you? Why could you sell headphones? There's so many big brands out there already. So no matter if it's the headphones or when we're making smartphones where the chipsets were quite in scarce quantities, we had suppliers tell us, oh, we have much bigger customers, like the top guys, and we owe them a lot of inventory that we're not able to fulfill. Why should we give it to you? So I think the main challenge to start up during COVID was the shortage in supply chain, also coupled with being a new company and not having a lot of trust in the market. But over time, we overcame these issues. In the beginning, we just had to kind of beg everybody, try and tell our story, try and talk about our ambitions, why we have a chance of being successful, and hopefully, you just need one person to say yes and take a chance on you so you can move on to the next stage. So we're able to convince some people to support us and make our products, release our products, sell a lot of products, thankfully, which kind of unlocked the next stage in getting better resources to continue, no matter if it's supply chain resources or capital to continue our journey.
Now, you obviously have a lot of big names supporting you in the roles of advisors or even investors. You've got Google VC, you've got Tony Fadell, and I've always wondered, what would you say were some of the best advice or suggestions that you received from Tony himself?
How should I put this? Working with Tony is very interesting. He used to be one of my childhood heroes. I'm a big Apple fan. I was the first kid in my school to get the iPod, and he's behind the iPod and also was very heavily involved in the iPhone, which kind of shaped my entire career. So I really looked forward to working with Tony, but he was very tough. He's very opinionated, and he was very tough on me in the beginning. But I think it's more like tough love, because he really, really pushed us to carefully think about who we're targeting. Who's your real target consumer? And when they're picking a product, what other options do they have? How are they thinking about the different options? And how does your product stack up against the other options? And why would they pick you? So they kept pushing us on this. And we're like, no, we don't want to answer this question. Like, we're very experienced already. Like, we've done this before. Don't worry about it. But he just kept pushing us. And I think we ultimately got to a lot better place. If you look at our brand, if you look at our product positioning, it's not everything for everybody. But I think for some people, it's a really cool product.
Now, how would you compare the Nothing right now versus what you had in your mind in terms of your vision? I'm sure a lot has changed. So I've always wondered, how would you describe the difference?
I guess it's an evolution, because in the beginning we didn't really know what we were trying to do. Recently we released a YouTube video talking about our early product ideas, and one of the first things was like, hey, nobody knows about us, we gotta create some buzz. And, and a couple of years ago when Elon Musk did the Boring Company, he made the flamethrower, which got a lot of buzz, so we were like, hey, let's make something really interesting. So we were looking at making a mind-controlled Nerf gun. Like, you just think about a color, and it would shoot like a Nerf gun bullet. But luckily, we didn't do a lot of those really gimmicky things. Over time, we really saw an opportunity where, in our industry, there's only a few really big companies, like Apple, like Samsung, like a few of the Chinese brands. And when you're big and you have a very successful company, you're not going to take a huge amount of risk. You kind of know who your customers are, you kind of know what kind of products they want. You're not going to take a lot of risk. And in all other industries, there's both big players with established businesses and small players who can take risk, but not in ours because it's just too hard. Like, everybody who's tried has kind of failed, so the barrier to entry is too high, which means we're the only company that can do things differently. We don't have the burden of legacy, and we don't have any other startup company in our industry. So, the smartphone has been out for almost 20 years, and it's gotten really boring recently. No matter if when you talk to our team or you talk to consumers or even sales channel partners or carriers, everybody's afraid that there's no more innovation. So I think that's where we really want to play. Like, how can we make technology more fun again? And I think we're in a very unique position to do that, which is much more meaningful than making something gimmicky that gets buzz.
So yes, I do agree that you've managed to make some really fun products. I personally use the Ear 2 every day, ever since the launch recently. And obviously the Phone 1 is a very nice product for showing off. And I'd like to ask, was it always your intention to reach out to some of the big names in the fashion industry? Because I see that's clearly having a big effect in terms of promoting your products. So, and I see your man of good taste. I've seen you turning up in all white gear and all that. Tell us about how you managed to get closer to the folks in the fashion industry, perhaps.
So we had a lot of internal discussions, like, hey, should we work with this fashion designer or that fashion designer? And I think our conclusion is that we shouldn't, at least not in the beginning when we're starting off our company, because you only work with fashion designers when you're not confident about yourself. So if you're a fashion designer, or if you're a product designer, a really good product designer, then you should just design your products. So I don't know. Maybe in the future, once our brand is more established, we can do that. But within our team, we have a very, very strong design team already. We have people from the fashion industry. We have one of our co-founders started a well-known fashion brand. And we also have the head of design at Dyson who joined us to lead our design. So I think we're already quite strong. And although I have okay taste, my team is much stronger. I'm more like a editor. I only say no in very extreme cases when they're obviously going down a wrong path. But normally, I'm pretty hands-off when it comes to design.
Basically, trust your team, or at least find the right people, and then you can trust them. Now, let's talk a bit about the Phone 2, the Nothing Phone 2. You started teasing it a few days ago, or maybe last week. And you've already mentioned that it's going to be premium. It's going to enter the US for the first time. And that it'll be powered by a Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 series processor, which is a flagship processor. That's quite a big change compared to the Phone 1, which was, I'd say, design-wise, I would say it's still premium, but spec-wise, it's more mid-range. So I'm curious to hear what led to this shift from mid-range to premium. Why do you have to do that?
We have a very big ambition, but as a company, we operate in a very practical and pragmatic way. And we're very comfortable being misunderstood at any given moment. So like in the beginning, when people thought we were a headphone company, that was fine. And then now, last year, people thought we were a smartphone company, that's also fine. But coming back to the point of pragmatism, we knew that building the first phone, we wouldn't have the engineering capabilities that we really wanted. So we were actually hiring the team as we were building the product, and a lot of the engineering work had to be outsourced to third parties. So we knew that at launch, it wouldn't be like we couldn't do all the things we wanted to do from engineering perspective, and we needed time to become more confident in our capabilities. So going straight to a flagship product, I think it was just too much burden. You know, people have very high expectations when you're selling a flagship, whereas if you start off with a mid-priced product, the expectations are also mid. And we always wanted to make a flagship, but we just needed to take a step-by-step approach. So over the past year, our engineering team has gotten 10x stronger. Our design team has gotten stronger. So now we can finally take that step up and create a real flagship that can go head-to-head with some of the best products out there.
Would that also significantly boost your margins? I'm just curious.
I think our margins are improving rapidly, but that's not because we're entering the flagship space. It's because we have proven ourselves with volumes. As I said before, people are very skeptical that a new brand in this day and age could start and sell a lot of product. So now that we've sold beyond our supply chain partners' expectations, a lot of people want to do business with us. Nobody wanted to do business with us in the beginning, so whoever wanted to work with us could kind of dictate the price. But now when everybody, or not everybody, but a lot of tier 1 suppliers want to work with us, then they have to bid. And then the prices come down. So that's why our margins have improved. It's not because we're entering a new product category, but rather we're at a new stage of maturity for our company.
Now, since you were mentioning that you've got a much stronger team now, how big is your team and where are they based these days?
We have a stronger team, but still a very small team. So we're about 450 people. We're headquartered in London, so that's where we have a lot of our HQ functions like brand, finance, design, marketing, and then we really believe in kind of leveraging the strengths of different regions. So prior to moving to London, I stayed in Shenzhen for 12 years, and I saw that Shenzhen is very good at hardware engineering, has a very strong supply chain. So those functions are based in Shenzhen, and we have a software team in Taipei, because Taipei has a lot of talent when it comes to software. They have a lot of OEMs as well. And then we have some supply chain in India as well, because we have manufacturing in India. We have small sales offices in Middle East, US. So it's a quite distributed team, but the central thought is let's not try and put everybody in the same place if the talent is not there. Let's try and be like where all the best talent in the world for the different fields are, and then connect them together.
Which would you say are your top 3 markets for either the phone or your earphones right now?
It's actually quite interesting. So for phone, India, Germany, UK.
In that order?
In that order.
Okay.
But for headphones, it's US, Japan, and probably India. So it's almost like 2 different businesses. If you look at our earphones, more than half of the users come from Apple. If you look at our smartphones, because it's based on Android, it's like 15% come from Apple. So yeah, 2 quite different business units.
What actually got the iPhone users, what won them over? Like, since you mentioned you're based on Android,
Yeah.
what would you say was the secret to that?
No matter if it's the phone or headphones, when we do the user research, design is the #1 reason. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of Apple users out there who really appreciate design. That's why they picked Apple to begin with. But then everybody has Apple, so you want to stand out and you want another choice that looks different but also has a nice design.
Now, since we mentioned markets, and you recently announced that, well, or you started teasing the fact that the Nothing Phone 2 will be entering the US. And obviously you've been in the mobile industry for many years. what are the main hurdles of entering the US cellular market?
I would say Apple has monopoly in the US. If you look at Gen Z, people born after 95, there's already 87% market share for iPhone. And if you ask them about their next phone purchase, 88% are going to pick the iPhone. So you see that it's still increasing. And at the center of this dominance is iMessage. And iMessage is basically, I don't think it's competing on product experience. It's mainly like a lock-in effect. If you don't have iMessage when you message your friends, because in the US they don't use WeChat, they don't use WhatsApp, they just use text message. If you message your friends, if you have iMessage, you have a blue bubble. If you don't have iMessage, you have a green bubble. And when you have a group chat, a lot of the functions don't work if you're not on iMessage. So your friends will actually kick you out of the group and stop making plans with you. I think especially when you're young and you want to fit in and you're not that confident, you just might as well just get an iPhone, right? So I think the number one thing is Apple has a monopoly with iMessage, and we have to work together with our ecosystem to break it in order for the consumers to benefit, because the way it's going, it's already 87%. Like, there's not going to be any choices left very soon.
What about from a carrier's perspective? Will you be launching this with a US carrier? Because that tends to be the case, or, makes things easier.
We haven't announced our sales plans for the US.
Okay, well, stay tuned then. Now, a little while back, Nothing also acquired some of the IP from Essential. For those who don't know, Essential was started by Andy Rubin, who's the father of Android, because later on Google acquired this Android company before using that as their own operating system for mobile. Now, Essential had some really cool designs. Later on, we also saw that they had a smart home hub and a really cool looking Android phone. So earlier on, way back before, you mentioned that at Nothing, you want to make people's lives easier, make the products easier to use and to connect with other devices. So I was wondering, will you be expanding into other product categories, especially like smart home, or how are you going to achieve your vision of making our lives easier?
When we bought the Essential trademarks, it was mainly because we liked the name. We liked the word Essential. We didn't like that brand because it was still quite a niche brand. But we liked the word Essential because we felt it really represents what we're trying to do. But ultimately, we picked Nothing because we don't want to be in the shadow of somebody else. We'd rather build our own thing and our own vision. But in terms of products, I think we're already in two very big product categories, audio and smartphone, and we're a tiny player in both. So instead of quickly expanding into many different products, we should expand our penetration and market share within the products we have. And I think we're in a very interesting space and time that, the smartphone you use for many hours a day, like on average it's like 4 to 5 hours, and your wireless headphones as well. And we're in a time where AI is really taking off. So if we can get enough volume and enough usage on our core products, I think the story kind of writes itself on what could be done in the future.
Now, I think you've briefly touched upon a smartwatch idea, perhaps. What do you think of smartwatches these days? Do you think it's still worth exploring? Was this something that we can expect Nothing to enter in the near future?
I personally don't use a smartwatch, and I don't think it's a good product fit for myself. I'm quite busy. I get a lot of notifications on my smartphone already. I don't need a second device to give me even more notifications. I think it adds more burden to your life versus reducing burden. I think as a tech company, we should find ways of enabling people to accomplish what they couldn't accomplish before, or do things quicker, or do things more easily, or cheaper. I don't think the smartwatch satisfies any of those criteria.
Not even health monitoring?
Health monitoring, okay, but I think maybe you don't even need a display. Maybe you can just wear a tracker and check your phone for your data.
Now, obviously, Google announced their new devices last night while we were hopefully sleeping soundly. And one of their new devices is the Pixel Fold. They finally launched their first foldable phone. I was wondering, personally, what do you think of the foldable form factor?
I think we're getting there. I think the creases are becoming less and less visible. And more importantly, I think the apps are getting better. So what I mean by that is, a couple of years ago when the first foldables came, all the apps were basically stretched out versions of the mobile apps. But now Android has been working on this, and Android app developers have been working on making the apps much more fit for purpose when you have a bigger screen. So I think we're getting there. I still think today it's more of a supply chain driven innovation versus a consumer needs driven innovations. What I mean by that is, like, if I'm Samsung, I invent AMOLED, and then a lot of other companies after a few years also begin making AMOLED displays, my margins go down. So I need to find new use cases of selling more advanced screens. And I think that's where the innovation is coming from. It's like being pushed down from the supply chain versus being like a real consumer need. Because I don't think people walk around thinking that they need a foldable phone. Maybe not yet. I think in a couple of years, we might get there. At least it's good that other people are pushing the boundaries forward. It's not something we're considering right now, but maybe in a couple of years when the category is more mature.
I guess it's fair to say that perhaps from your side, from your team, what you can offer to the table is software innovation, right? So what would you say are some of the highlights that you're most proud of that maybe might have inspired the Android team at Google?
You mean what have we done that might have inspired the Android team?
In terms of, either software or overall UX.
I know for a fact that a few things are directly influenced by us, but I can't say because of our NDA.
Okay, so, interesting.
But so for our first phone, we didn't really have the engineering capabilities on the software side. So again, to the point that when you ask our users, what's the number one reason they buy us? Number one is design. So our first phone, I think, only had hardware design differentiation. This year, we're going to be able to bring that design into the software side as well. So I think that's something I'm really looking forward to, because if people already appreciate us for design, then what will happen when we also apply that onto the software?
Now, apart from software, actually, I do have to give you guys credit for one of your main hardware features, which is the glyph interface. And for those who don't know, actually, Nothing has a booth somewhere over there, so feel free to check it out. One of their signature features is the glyph interface, which is, how would you describe it? A bunch of LED strips on the back.
Yeah, it's more than 900 LEDs.
No, okay,
Yeah.
900 LEDs. And they, depending on your notification or ringtones or whatever, they flash in synchronization with the audio, which I found to be quite cool. And that's, again, that's really fun to show off to people. Makes a wow factor. Walk us through, how did the glyph interface come into your vision?
You know, this topic kind of pains me because we've been criticized a lot that it's just a phone with some funky lights on the back, but that wasn't our intention. It goes back to kind of the engineering resource and our speed to deploy the roadmap. So back in the day, you know, Xerox had a research lab. That's where the GUI came from, the modern mouse came from, where Apple and Microsoft stole a lot of their ideas from. One of their ideas that they were developing was around the concept of calm technology. So technology that works in your periphery that you don't have to actively engage with, but you still gives you important and interesting information. Like, for instance, when you're driving a plane as a pilot, there's signals and lights in your periphery, but you need to focus on what's ahead of you. But you can still kind of see what's going on, and you get supported. So that's where the idea for glyph interface came from, inspired by the research that Xerox did in calm technology. It's just that there's so many features that we're looking to build for the Glyph interface, but we weren't able to at the launch of the Phone 1. So we got that criticism. So hopefully going forward, we will address this.
But you've applied a few updates to the Glyph interface since launch, I guess. Can you walk us through the evolution?
The real evolution is coming soon. We barely scratched the surface of what we can do with it. Basically, in today's form, it will allow you to set different light patterns depending on who's trying to call you. So you can see whether it's your significant other or your boss or somebody not that important and decide whether you need to pick up the phone or not. When you charge wirelessly on the back, it lights up to signal that it's charging. When you're charging your phone, you can shake it to see a progress of how much charge there's in your phone. But I think we're barely scratching the surface. Like, our intention is to enable you to put your phone down. Like, we're on our phones too much. When we have dinner with our friends, we're still on our phones. To enable you to put your phone down, but still have control of what's going on. Know what important things are going on.
I know you recently came across some blatant copycats, which they clearly were applying a similar kind of light interface on the back. How did you feel when you saw that? And how do you feel whenever you see blatant copycats of your products?
It's a sweet and sour feeling, I guess. If you look at the copycats, it used to be like these really crappy companies that were selling like fake earbuds for $10, $12 on these like cross-border e-commerce websites. But now, even big companies are starting to take inspiration from us, companies that are way more successful. So at least we're moving up the value chain in that regard. And I think if we feel like the tech industry is boring and we want to ignite change, then inspiring others to be a part of that change, we should still accept that, right? Because overall the industry is getting more interesting. So I remember Tesla, they opened some of their IP to other auto manufacturers because they just want to accelerate mankind's transition to renewable energy. So it doesn't matter if Tesla does it or they inspire other people to do it. It's still a net benefit to society. So I think conflicted, but thinking about it in this way makes me feel more comfortable.
And yeah, I agree. Maybe in that way it will lift up, it will boost the entire supply chain. And in return, you get more options later on, maybe, in terms of component choices. Now, I guess this will be my last question. What are some of the biggest contributions in terms of ideas coming from your user base? Because I know you have a very active community, you have a forum, and that's always, I personally think this is one of your main strengths ever since I've known you from way back. Like, Kara and I go way back. I think we've known each other for like 13 years. Yeah. 13 years. And you've always been very good at driving an online community for brands. In Nothing's case, what are some of the biggest contributions from your community?
I think this time around, we really wanted to make it more meaningful. I think there's a lot of smart people all over the world. They might not have the resumes. They might sit in a remote island but be really passionate about something and become an expert because they have the internet and a computer to really learn. So I think long term, we need to figure out how can we involve all these really great people from all corners of the world in building the company together with us. And in the short term, we've done a couple of things. So first of all, we opened up our company investment to everybody. So we have more than 8,000 regular people who invested their savings into our company. And secondly, on our board, we also have a community representative. So the community runs their own election every year to appoint a member to our board, and they hold us accountable. Hey, you promised to do this. This is not good. So like on the highest strategic level towards our management team and our other board members. And I think by building up the community in a much more meaningful way, we're also seeing a lot more meaningful engagement coming from our users. So there's so many beautiful future product concept renders coming from our user base. I've never seen that before. Like some of those, they give a lot of pressure to us because that means our design team has to perform even better. we can't just have some guy on the internet be better than us. And most recently, in our new version of Oxygen OS for Phone 1, we added Cyrillic font, because we have a very unique typeface with all the dots, like a dot matrix. And it didn't support Cyrillic, but one of our community members made it for us. And we put it into our official product. And you know, you can control the ear 1, ear stick, ear 2 from the phone, on your iPhone or your Android phone. One of our users made a Windows control app for us, and it looks really beautiful. Two of our users, they collaborated. One made the engineering, like the software side, and one did the design, the UI UX. And we also helped them promote it. So now you can install it on your Windows. It has the same features as the mobile app.
That's wonderful to hear. Now, I think at this point we're going to have to wrap up. And Nothing Phone 2 coming out at some point this summer.
This summer. Stay tuned.
All right. And thanks for those who tuned in. And for the rest of you, please enjoy the rest of the show. Thank you.